And there we go. Okay, coaches, we're ready to get going. Welcome back, everybody, to week 10. I can't believe we're 10 consecutive weeks now. These webinars have gone extremely well. We're thankful for the fabulous participation and turnout we've gotten from coaches. And we are delighted tonight to have Marty Johnston join us. Many of you probably will remember Marty from his Ottawa days, local guy, coached with the Ravens. I first met Marty when he was coaching with the Gloucester Rangers, pre-AAA days. Marty's now in Winnipeg, coaching with the Winnipeg Jets AHL affiliate, the Manitoba Moose. We're delighted to have you, Marty. I'll let you speak a little bit more about your background and bio. And thanks for doing this for us tonight, and all over to you.
All right. Well, really excited to be a part of this. Hope everybody's healthy. I'm not going to get much into my background. I think we'll dive right into the seminar here, and then if we have time at the end, then we can talk about things like that. But as Brian said, my first experience in coaching was the year after I retired, and I was with the Gloucester Rangers. And from that moment on, it's been a great journey, and I've learned from all the people that I've worked with and the players as well. And I'm continuing to do that now here in Winnipeg. I'm in a very unique situation where at the American League level, we have our NHL team in the same building and in the same city. So learning a lot, getting to see a lot, and hoping that maybe I can provide some stuff for you guys tonight that you can use with your club teams this season. So the word analytics, so, to be honest, it scared me when I first heard it, and I basically just wanted to ignore it and say, that's not for me. I've played the game a little bit, and I've been around it, so I'm going to watch and trust my instincts. But as time has gone on, I've learned to not be so afraid of it, and learn to use it into not only practice but evaluation. So we'll sort of start the journey with a book that I read 2 years ago, and anybody that wants to kind of take a deeper dive into learning how the greatest performers, not just in hockey, but in musicians, cab drivers. If you read any of the books, there's one particular researcher, Dr. Anders Ericsson. His name always comes up, and I'm just going to take a couple snippets out of the book to read to you to give you an idea of where we're going. And if ever you have the chance to read that book, it's pretty neat. I'm reading it for the third time right now. But anyways, I'll get to it here. So we're drawing a clear distinction between purposeful practice, in which a person tries very hard to push himself or herself to improve, and practice that is both purposeful and informed. Deliberate practice nearly always involves building or modifying previously acquired skills by focusing on particular aspects of those skills and working to improve them specifically. Because of the way that new skills are built on top of existing skills, it is important for teachers to provide beginners with the correct fundamental skills in order to minimize the chances that the student will have to relearn those fundamental skills later when at a more advanced level. And I know from a personal perspective, I played a little bit of hockey, a little bit of professional hockey, but never really made it to the NHL, and had a cup of coffee in the American Hockey League. And everyone always assumed that it was my size that prohibited me from getting to that level. But I can honestly admit that it was my skating that was the issue. And in my early 20s, I tried to remedy that issue by going to as many skating coaches and doing as much work as I could in the summer. But at the end of the day, my body was used to a short, choppy stride, and I got a little bit faster, but I didn't get much faster as I got older. So, the coaches that are working with the real young players, if you can really focus on those fundamental skills, I think you're really doing your players a whole lot of good. And it's on those skills that we work on a daily basis that helps us make our American League players hopefully NHL players. So we'll move ahead here with the slide, but this is the basis of our presentation here. So the first thing we're going to look at here is just the objective. We're going to get a bunch of information, and then we're going to analyze it And then the question becomes, what do you do with it? And through the course of the season, it was our job and my job as a coach to find the information, analyze it, and then come up with a solution. And I did that only because I was on a seminar, much like what you're doing tonight. I was in Windsor last summer, and I sat in on a seminar with a guy. So I'm a slide ahead of myself already here, but typically the methods that you would evaluate post game for your team, usually it's the results, or maybe it's the winning streak you're on, or maybe you're thinking of, geez, we're scoring lots of goals, or we're giving up lots of goals. What was the shot clock? You're outshot badly. You know, those special teams, how was that? That's usually how, as a young coach, I evaluated our game and the way we were playing post game. And as time went on, that changed. And it was, like I was saying previously, in Windsor, I was at the Roger Nielsen Clinic. We unfortunately didn't make the playoffs last year, and decided to go and try to get better. And it was Saturday morning. They had the goalie session. And I don't know how many of you, even through these seminars that Brian and HEO have put on, have decided to ignore the goalie session. And I decided, only because Rockford is in our division, and I was hoping to get a little bit of insight on what the Rockford goalies were doing, went to this. And from there, it had really nothing to do with the goalies that I took out of it. It became how I wanted to evaluate scoring chances and how I wanted to evaluate our team play the next season. So it was really thanks to Peter Obrey, who's the goalie coach in Rockford and affiliated with Chicago Blackhawks, that I came up with this. So I came up with 5 different classifications of scoring chances, and they're very simple, and I'll give you video examples shortly of each of them. And then the 6th tab here, which you'll see, is screen chances. That's something that any of these 5 categories could also have an asterisk to it in how I classified our scoring chances, which meant there was a screen involved in it as well. And that was due largely to watching the St. Louis Blues be so successful in the Stanley Cup playoffs last year. They had so much traffic at the net. We wanted to make sure that that was a focus point. So I'm going to kind of try to let the video run here to make sure that we're not wasting time. But the first one is straight line. So that's a scoring chance where the goalie doesn't have to adjust his feet. That's a straight line shot attempt. Same thing here. Wheeler's coming in, shot on net. The goalie doesn't have to adjust his angle. So, typically those things are easier for the goalie, and there's stats out there that say a straight line shot attempt should be saved 97% of the time in the NHL. So you want to make sure your chances aren't always straight line, but there are flaws to this system, and our goalie coach doesn't like it. This is a straight line attempt as well. So a breakaway could be a straight line attempt. So no system is perfect in terms of how we classify them. And this is something I did. This is not Jets protocol or anything like that. This is just a project that I took on during the season. Then we have Royal Road. Our goalie coach likes to use that term in describing the puck crossing the midline of the ice. So the goalie has to adjust his feet. So here's an example. There's a kick out play here. Goalie has to adjust, and that's a Royal Road scoring chance. Here's the standard Royal Road scoring chance. So the puck goes from a 2-on-1 right to left. Really difficult for a goalie to score, to stop that scoring chance. So that's obviously a higher quality chance, and you're probably not going to have as many of them in a game, but you'd like to make sure you have some. The next one's goal line, and it's just scoring chances generated from the goal line. So you'll see there the goalie's feet are on the crease here. Washington player is a wraparound, then there's a rebound. So depending on the style of play that your team has, or how you want to play, if you're a rush attack team, or if you're more of a get the puck behind the other team's defense and generate offense, you want to make sure that you have some goal line scoring chances. So here's another example. Ozlovic gets it here, makes a pass out. So I would classify that as a goal line scoring chance. Then obviously you have tips, which is pretty self-explanatory. I'm not sure that I would do this again next year in terms of classifying it, but tip. So there he gets a stick on a tip shot. So that would be another classification that I use throughout the season, and then rebounds. So this was something. So this is a bit of a bad bounce. So Cody Eakin ends up taking a straight line attempt because that deflects off a Washington player. So that would be one scoring chance, and the next would be Ehlers putting a rebound in. At times here, the video may stall, and apologize for that. We'll do our best. And then there's screen chances. So this would be, to me, a goal line scoring chance with an asterisk. So Rosler comes around the net, and then the shot is taken, and there's a screen. So I just tried to pause that and back that up. I try to go back one. So I'd like you to focus on the work the goalie has to do to stop that puck. So any of those classifications that we have, if we can get the screen, then that would be great. I think that really impacts the likelihood of you getting more scoring chances or you getting pucks in the back of the net. So now we're going to move on to a singular game that our club team had this year in January. So we played Laval, Montreal's farm team. And if you guys, had a relative on the team or you knew me and you wanted to check in on how we were doing, you'd go to the box score. And I think you would make some assumptions based on that. You would say, well, obviously the Moose goalie was really good. The power play, which I'm responsible for with Manitoba, wasn't great, 1 for 8, and Laval's was just okay at 1 for 6. So is that the true meaning of your game? Is that how you're going to evaluate your own team based on this line? I hope not. Now it's time to dig a little deeper and get more information and get as much as you can so that you're prepared to analyze the game the next time you get to see your team. So this is where the shots came from that night. So the yellow shots are Laval, the blue shots are ours. And then I made a diagram that's not necessarily how we classify scoring chances. It's a little bit different, but in essence, we'll call those squares the house. So although Laval got 41 shots, they got 14 shots in the house. Although we had 23, we got 13 in the house. And then from there, we dug a little deeper, and we had 9 scoring chances 5-on-5 and 13 scoring chances 5-on-5 for Laval. So at the end of the day, that big shot clock, the difference was we were -4 5-on-5. So what does that mean? How did we play? Does that mean we were good, we were bad? We're going to look at our offensive chances here now. So these are the scoring chances we classified. So that chance came from the goal line. So we would have noted who was on the ice and who was part of that. I consider this a straight line attempt too, because the goalie he adjusted his angle outside the top of the circle or outside the scoring area. So we would consider this a straight line scoring chance. That we would consider a goal line scoring chance. That pass came from the goal line and we scored. So here again, this is an example of a straight line scoring chance. So I've paused it here. So we are shorthanded and we got a breakaway, ripped it top shelf. So that was a straight line. So under that system, that would be a Royal Road. So the goalie had to adjust multiple times to track the puck. And we got that scoring chance from a Royal Road opportunity. 2-on-1, straight line scoring chance, rebound scoring chance. So there'd be 2 chances credited there. Here, we make a long stretch pass, straight line. Rebound. So there you have it. Those are our scoring chances for that game. So after the game, I'm lucky enough that I work with an Ottawa area guy as well, Richard Bowie, who is our video coach, and he somehow, some way, clips all this stuff in the game. So after the game, I go through our scoring chances, and then you'll see here the page that we note the time, who was the primary person involved, secondary, and who was the tertiary guy involved. Where did it come from? So this first chance was goal line. I circled it because we scored, and we got that from our O-zone play. And so if you look at the breakdown of our 5-on-5 chances, it's pretty obvious that we did a good job creating some chances off the rush. We did a fairly poor job of creating any chances through O-zone play. So that might be something that we want to do. We had no screens 5-on-5. So depending on what you want to focus on, you can take a lot from the information. The writing in the red, because I'm responsible for power play, and we were 1 for 8, these are the scoring chances that we created on the PP. And so you'll see there's a lot more our notes in those chances, which is, you know, a good thing. Obviously on the power play, you want to move the puck around, you want to make it difficult for your goalie. So although we were 1 for 8, we did have 10 scoring chances, and we had 5 that were Royal Road. So, and then we had 2 here I wanted to point out. So those were our screened attempts. So that player would get an additional rating for that screen. So even though he didn't touch the puck, he was a screen. So we add that column in to evaluate how our team played. So I realize I'm giving you a pile of information, and it is a pile of information, and you got to make sure that you have time and that you're going to use this information. But, oh, we're going to have to go back, sorry. So yeah, the idea being is that you want to use the information, and sometimes a snapshot of one game isn't really fair, but this is something that we would tabulate as the season goes on, and this is an example of one game. So for example, number 10 had 2 primary scoring chances, 1 secondary, and he had 3 for a total. As a group 5-on-5, we had 9 scoring chances. On the power play here in red, we had 10. And then these were how the goals, the bottom line here, this is how we scored our goals. So we had, the red is obviously the power play. The other ones are the 5-on-5 chances. So that's more for an individual focus. I don't think you necessarily need to do that with your team, depending on the level of support you have. But I think even if you don't have a lot of support staff, if you have a parent that's logging where the shots are coming from, it will still give you an idea of what your team is good at and what your team's not good at. So not just necessarily just the shot, but where did it come from? And if you have the ability to have someone to do that, I think it helps. So, so the big one for me that I looked at after every game was this one. Was, okay, here, where were our chances from? We had 4 straight line, 1 Royal Road. You guys can read as follows below. And is that a trend with how our team's playing? And on the flip side of that, you want to look at, okay, this is how we're generating our scoring chances. How are we giving up our scoring chances? So I'm going to run through the scoring chances against quickly. So there's 2 there, straight line and a rebound. And we would do the same thing as we do offensively. We would note who was involved in those plays. So that would be straight line. So you'll see here, this is actually a shorthanded chance against. So we gave up 2 on a poor track. Here is a bit of a scramble play, and this can be up for a debate. I would consider that a goal line play, but a goalie coach might consider that a straight line play. This would be a Royal Road. So we've given up a scoring chance where they've passed the puck laterally and made it more difficult for a goalie to stop it. Here's an entry. Poor job by us defending the rush, but there's a Royal Road. That's a quality scoring chance. Again, your team's probably not doing a great job if you're giving up a bunch of Royal Roads, and your goalie's also doing a great job if he's forced to stop that many Royal Road attempts. So we're almost through here, but you can make your own conclusions. There's some PK or shorthanded chances against, and then there's a bunch in the third period late when we have a lead. So although we gave up 41 shots, the picture maybe isn't as bad as it seems to to the eye when you look at the box score. So these chances are all given up late. That's a goal line, pretty casual with a 5-1 lead. Here we get beat on the rush again, wide. So that player would be responsible for that chance against that got beat. And then from there we do the same thing. We tabulate the marks, and it's not always the worst thing in the world if you're a minus. If you're a guy that has to play against the other team's top line, you're going to be out there and there's going to be some chances against, and that's okay. So the individual focus is not the primary objective, but here, again, we would talk about this as a staff and talk about, okay, well, what are we giving up and what are we doing well? Well, we obviously did a pretty good job net front if we only gave up 1 rebound scoring chance. So that encompasses both the offensive and defensive side of the game. And okay, pause there. So then from there, what do you do with all this information? Are you going to post it on the board for your team? I certainly hope not. I don't think you don't have to prove to your players how hard you work. You just got to do your work. And a lot of people aren't going to know about it, but that's just the way it is. But the review options that you have in terms of scoring chances against, which I took out of this seminar by Peter Aubry, is he was talking about your goalie. And so if a goalie has 41 shots against and they're primarily straight line shots, well, he wasn't taxed to the same level as possibly our goalie, who had 23 shots against but had more Royal Road or more rebound scoring chances against. So if you're evaluating, you're in a position where you have 2 goalies and you can evaluate, well, do I want to play this goalie back to back? Are you going to base it solely on shots or shot attempts? Or are you going to base it on what was his workload like? Guys came down the wall and they took shots and it was one and done, and he didn't have to move too much. Well, maybe he didn't get taxed that much even though he had 41 shots. Or maybe he did. Maybe he is tired even though we only gave up 20. So I thought that was really interesting in terms of how to communicate to a non-goalie coach how that goalie played and what he saw. And it gives me a much better perspective on being a little bit more understanding with goalies and what they have to deal with. And then the other thing, obviously, you want to look at, and we talked about it, is the 5-on-5 play. So were we giving up chances in our D-zone coverage? Were we giving up our chances in our rushes against? And then digging even deeper, do we need to have player meetings? And in those player meetings, do we need to use that information? So that's kind of how I decided to use analytics this year, and how I hope that it would take away any jading that I might have based on emotion of winning and losing or not producing. And I think it has helped. So this is an analysis on the left-hand side of a 10-game segment. And it just gives you what we accomplished in that 10-game segment. And like I said, if you're a rush attack team and you want to carry the puck in all the time, you probably want to hire Royal Road chances. If you're a team that wants to get the puck behind the other team's defense, you probably want higher goal line. Everybody wants more screens, and then rebounds. And through these numbers, I tracked how we scored our goals, and it was pretty remarkable when you talk to the players and you said, well, the percentage of a rebound scoring chance of getting a goal is 22% or whatever it may be. I would suggest going to that area. That's something that you can, your chances of scoring are much greater than coming down the wing and firing a puck and doing a big loop. So we used how we scored as well into that, but again, we didn't use it very often. And then on an individual level, on the right-hand side that you see here, I used this to sort of analyze how the players were doing and maybe if they were straying from the way we wanted to play, or they were wondering why they weren't producing. We tracked their scoring chances, and typically at our level, we're very fortunate. Players are usually really hard on themselves, and it's times when they're not scoring where you show them that you're getting your chances. Look, You've got 11 primary scoring chances. You're going to get the next one. You just got to keep going. Instead of just giving them a pat on the back, you can show them something tangible. So that's what we do at our level. And I know that it's not always possible to do that when you don't have a lot of help or you don't have the use of video. But it has changed how I've decided to look at practice and things of that nature. So again, all kinds of information. At the end of the day, this was a quote from Claude Julien this week, actually. It said, "I'm a believer that as a coach, you can never get too much information. As much as you can get is great, but the important thing is what you share with your players. That's where you have to be careful." And I think if when we get to analytics and all these numbers, if I jam this down their throat every day or had a posted things every day, it would lose its effect. And the guys would say, listen, there's more to it than just numbers. And they're right. There absolutely is more to it than just numbers. But I think if you have that background information, then maybe the messages that you want to send that are more difficult to accept, or maybe they don't see it a certain way, it's easier to give them that. So with that being said, we move on to practices, and now it's your decision to take all that information, analyze it, and say, well, how can we use this? And for our coaching staff, I'm very fortunate to work with coaches that are, way smarter than me, and we decide to use analytics as part of the daily process in discussing where it is our team needs to go, and maybe where it is a certain player needs to go. But it's not the only thing. And then from there, we plan practice. We design specific roles for each coach that are detailed for each drill. And, obviously in a lot of the team play drills, I'll be focusing on the offense or running the drill. And then our defense coach will be, evaluating the defenseman, but we mix it up. And, but I think it's important. And the other thing that I think is important to do, certainly with your staff, is, to me, the guy that has the least impact on the players is the coach that's running the drill. So if you feel as a head coach you need to be the guy that explains every drill and runs every drill, I think your players are losing out. Allow your assistant coaches to run drills, and they're responsible for the timing of those drills. And then you can actually coach. You can give feedback. You can look at the details, and your other coaches should be doing the same thing. And assign different things for each coach. And I feel like that's a real important part in establishing the skills that you're looking at and you've talked about that day, is making sure that your coaches are looking at that. And then the last part and the most important part, and I think that at Carleton, when I was there for 10 years, we had part-time goalie coaches that had other jobs, so they weren't always around. But I think now with the coaches that I work with, we have an opportunity for the goalie coach to be part of the process, and he can review the volume, the quality of the shots, and then we can also in turn flip that over and say, okay, does that work for what we want to do offensively? And I know for me, I can look back and I've had countless practices that I've run that have been straight line shots, and the number of shots have been very, very high. So the goalie coaches often said, how long is the drill going to be? Okay, well, and our response is, well, we want 4 reps for each skater. Well, we got 23 guys on the ice. You know how many shots that is? And I can't answer it right now because I'm not good at math, but it quickly adds up. So then he's done, and we've done a good job of recognizing maybe what we need to do and the volume of shooting drills that we want to do, and how we go about it. So with this scoring chance chart, we've kind of adjusted some of the ways we go about designing our drills, and I hope you understand that. I've been clear enough with that. And then I don't need to read through the rest of the notes, but just being as prepared as possible. And if you are prepared, then you have the opportunity to do what I think is really, really important, and that's present. And if I could go back in time, even with our Gloucester Ranger team, I think I would have taken more advantage of the time in the dressing room. So when your players get to the rink, their job is to warm up and be ready for practice. But I don't think it's too much to ask to be ready for you to talk to them 15 minutes before or 10 minutes before, and you be able to explain the theme of that day and have the players aware of what it is you want them to do and why. And it's at that point that we all have to be accepting of the fact that we want the players to be able to say, why are we doing this? If they're given the ability to say, why are we doing this, then they're going to have a stake in it, and they're going to feel like they're part of the process, and they're going to understand why they're doing the drills, and maybe that'll give them that little extra edge to want to get better. And if you're prepared, you've done your work, you've looked at all this information, we could go back into the presentation and talk about all the different things that we looked at. You have lots of information there to use and to fall back on, and it'll make you really confident in terms of why you're doing things and what you're doing in practice. And then from there, the players will buy in too. If you say, listen, we really need to get better at this. This is what we've done in the last 5 games. We've had no scoring chances from below the goal line. We need to be better. And if you have the opportunity to use your own video, great. If you don't, and you still have the opportunity to use video, take some NHL video. It's the best quality. It's where all the kids want to go. So use some of that in your teaching tools. And then at the end of the day, doesn't matter what you're going to talk about, set a time limit on your meetings. Be clear, be concise, get in, get out. And if you do that pre-practice, the players will be focused. But if your meetings go for 15, 20 minutes and you talk on end on a consistent basis, you've lost them and you haven't done your job as a coach. So make sure that you're prepared, and then you present a clear message and have the players go out for practice. And why not for practice? Why should we not be as prepared for practice as we are for games? It's the most meaningful time we can have with the players. The information we get is from the games. That's the easiest way to get information on how they're performing. But the practice is the most important time for us to communicate with them and tell them what we want to do. You can't do that in game. You can do it a little bit, but you can't do much. So the last thing is in terms of practice, is the execution of how you're going to go about this. And for me, I think I got caught up in this as a young coach. Is I designed a practice that I worked hard on and our staff was, proud of. And you wanted that practice to run as smoothly as possible. You wanted to be, you wanted to look like a symphony, and you were the conductor. And if somebody came to watch, they'd say, wow, what a coach, what a team. Well, practice doesn't work that way to me. There's going to be times where it's choppy. There's no flow. If you want it, depending on what you want to get done, you have to expect some failure. You have to expect some teaching, and it doesn't have to look great to the people on the outside. What you want to accomplish in a practice is, 2 to 3 things. You can do that, and it can look awful. You don't have to paint a Picasso in a practice to appease the parents or the GM or whoever it is that may be. You do what's needed to be done. You work on those specific skills, and you build off of that so that they can do it in a game. And that's where it starts for us in Manitoba here with the Moose, is that we have a skill development mindset every time we step on the ice. And for the most part, we're recognized as the second best league in the world. So why shouldn't anybody have that same mindset? We're trying to make our players full-time NHL players by being a little bit faster and a little bit cleaner with their play. And by doing that, we have to work on the individual components of these small areas, and then we slowly and gradually build them into our team play practices, and we repeat it after practice as well. And it will look, if you ever watched one of our practices or a pro practice, some of the drills look incredibly simple. And I have a son that's 10 years old, and I've helped out with some of his practices, and coaches have said, geez, yeah, that's pretty simple. Are we going to, evolve or move on? And it's a fact that 20 to 25-year-olds are doing that same thing, maybe a touch faster, but it's as simple as that. And I think that if you can break down the components of that the areas you want to work on, you're really going to help your team. And then within that, we want to make sure that the players are pushed outside of their comfort zone, and you want to create competition within your drills. And I'm not big on stories, but I'll just have a quick aside here. I had the opportunity to work at Carleton University for 10 years, and their basketball program is the best the country has ever seen, in my opinion. And they have a once-in-generation coach that just retired. And I had an opportunity to sit in on one of his practices, which is, pretty special, because that wasn't a common practice of his. And it was absolutely amazing, the level of competition within the practices. And I think they had been on some sort of streak of 5 years in a row winning national championships, but they had created that internal competition and their desire to get better. And I think that's really a big key to what propelled them to be so much better than everybody else. And obviously, the coaching staff and the intricacies of basketball, I don't know, but I do know that was one of the main things I took out of that opportunity to sit in on that practice. So if you can create competition, do that. And then if you can finish with post-practice individual drills, do that. So if you have the opportunity where you have lots of ice, or say you have an hour and a half of ice time, and you have a 17-man roster, well, you can't typically run them hard for that long of a period of time. Or maybe you can, but we certainly don't run that long of a practice with our group. And we have an opportunity to work on those individual skills at the end of practices as well, that we've designated. So in saying all that, I'm sure you're saying, yeah, I know all that, but how do I know what to do and when to use the analytics? And that becomes that becomes something that you have to decide on, what's important to you. And after a couple slides here, you'll see some of the drills that I've decided to share with you, but they're not earth-shattering drills. It's just something to show you that when we decide to focus on an area, it's a very limited area, and it seems very simple, but we take that theme and we ride it right through to practice. And some of the things that you might need to consider when you're running a practice is that, depending on your level, you might have guys that are first-year players, second-year players, third-year players in the league. Some are elite and those special players, and some are maybe just trying to hang on. So you have to understand the gaps between the starting points and the destination, and the complexities of the drill. You want to make sure that your young guys or your newer players feel comfortable, and you can give them a basic set of drills to focus on with basic instruction. And then you want to make sure that your better players, you have some tools in place and some real detailed information that you can give them as well. And you'll see in the drills that follow, you can really be specific if you want to be, and you can be general as well with your players, depending on their level and where they're at. But you want to make sure they're comfortable. You want to make sure they feel capable. And then you want to understand as well, going back to that failure component, that if for example you're doing rims and you're picking up rims, well, yeah, guy might struggle all night to pick them up, but he's going through that process and he's failing, and he's going to be better for it. May not be tonight, but it'll be better the next day and better the next day. And it's how you go about teaching that and coaching that player up. So here's an example of a practice day where in the scoring chance classification, we decided to focus on goal line. So for example, if you're a team that you want your players to make sure not to turn over the puck at the blue line or whatever, and you want to get the puck deep, well, you're going to have to generate offense from below the goal line. So pre-practice, we would have drills designed to focus on that, and the assistant coaches would be responsible for executing these drills. And they would have the theme that we're looking at, but they would not involve pace, because we wouldn't want to take away from their practice performance when the head coach is watching and involved. And depending on your team, if everyone can be involved, but it starts slow and then it picks up. So then we would have our normal practice, and I'll show you some of the drills, but they're outlined in terms of the timing of it. And then we would also designate who's running each drill as a coach. And then we'd have some post-practice options as well. And, with our team, I have the term optional there, but a lot of times we'll have kind of pre-designed or pre-existing conversations with players that some like to stay out late and some like to get off early, some like to come out early, and so we try to work around what they need to do to get better, and we're very open to that. So that's sort of a typical design of how a practice would run with our group. And then I'll give you a couple of examples of some drills. But to be honest, make your own drills. Like, stop looking for the perfect drills. Think about what your team wants to do and needs to do. And if you can take video out of it, take video out of it and use it yourself. And I think if you do that, you become more engaged and more involved in your drills, and you're looking for the things that you want to look at instead of just saying, this looked good and I want to do that. So this is a drill I do in the neutral zone. If, for example, you're running, there's goalie in one end getting warmed up, and then there's some veterans shooting pucks. So we talked about goal line, and we talked about the need to make plays quickly. So this can be at the goal line, but it can also be in other areas of your play. So if you had a couple D and a couple forwards out, there's different ways to look at it. So here's a quick play, no dust, pass. So that's all we're looking for. Get around the puck, pass the puck on the tape. That's it. As simple as that. Then there's another drill that we do, start a practice. It's not full speed, but it's basically one guy goes and collects the puck, and his partner decides whether he wants to be in the slot or he wants to go back post. And is it that simple? No. So then we talk about, what are the keys? The keys are, how many times can you shoulder check and before you get the puck, so you know what to do with the puck when you get it. And when you turn, you want to make sure you don't stick handle with the puck. You want to make sure that you're in a position to pass the puck whenever the right time is there. And if you turn on your backhand, then let's make a backhand pass. And then now that we're able to do that, let's make sure there's a little bit of bite on that pass so we can get by a defender. So in that simple drill, depending on the level of your player, you can tell them one of those keys, or you could tell them a couple, or you can tell them all of them if you want. But I think for our players, for a new player coming in to do that drill, I would just simply be talking about making sure he shoulder checks and the angle he's taking on picking up that puck, and then maybe his first two steps. That's it. And it's a fun drill for them to do. A lot of times the goalie is actually not in the net because they don't like doing this pre-practice, but sometimes they are. So how would that happen or relate to a game? Well, here's Kyle Connor getting it, picking it up. He's scanning the ice. He's moving his feet. He's protecting it. He's eluding the defender. He's trying to make a play. So if we wanted to talk to the shooters about getting their shots off and maybe not blocking them in a goal line scenario, here's a pretty special example of feet are set, on the stick, off the stick. So if I wanted to talk to a young player that's maybe struggling and we're going to do those drills pre-practice, I would show him some clips like this. And moreover, hopefully some clips of himself doing it well. Another drill that we've done and we would do at the American League level, I don't want you to think that this isn't relatable to pro hockey. This is. It's simple, but it's simply coaches rimming a puck. This forward here, we may shoot a puck to make sure he stays net front, and then he's got to learn how to pick up that puck and skate with it, drive his feet, make a good pass to an F3 or a D potentially on this side. This player just collects the puck, goes back in line, and it's just a merry-go-round, and we work on rims, and both coaches can do it offsetting times. And then after a while, you can progress to a cutback, you can do different things, but again, we're focusing on goal line play. And does that relate? Yeah, that relates. So here line A gets it, protects the puck, drives his feet to off the goal line, makes a pass. Seems simple, but under pressure, are your players able to do that? Can they collect that puck and make that play? I'm not going to explain this drill, but it's a D retrieval drill. So here, number 3 for Washington. So focus on, that's my timer that I'm at 45 minutes, just to make sure I'm not talking too long. So here you want to focus on the inside D, Johnston here. So picking up rims is applicable to defensemen as well. So he picks that puck up on his backhand and they break out. And you can get as specific with our group. We talk about the spin of the puck when you pick up rims. So you can dig really deep into how you want to explain goal line play. So there's a goal line play. Here you'll see a kickback play by Scheifele, a D-to-D play, good feet by Kulikov, good pass reception by Scheifele. So just in that 5-second clip, if you could grab that off of NHL.com or YouTube, you could run that clip before your practice for your players and explain to them what you want to do in terms of the defenseman with their feet when they're pivoting there, what your centerman's route wants to be, his head is up, and how he skates with the puck. So there's lots of things you can do, and it's things that we do at our level. And it's all based on goal line play. That was the theme of the day. So here we're progressing to some competition with a defender and a moving F3. So does that apply in a game? Sure does. Here's Kyle Connor, cut back. No player available for a pass. He takes it to the net. We like that. Here, Blake Wheeler, same last game of the regular season here. He gets it, looks, scans the ice, D is open. So I talked about the offensive side of the play. Now the defensive side. So you focus in on number 2 here, Potato. How do you want your defenseman to play a below the goal line scenario? And I'm not going to tell you what's right or what's wrong. That's not what tonight is about. But this is an example of Pionk here, number 4. How does he play that? And then in the next clip, it's Pionk again. So here's a guy who's not very big against the former Hart Trophy winner, Taylor Hall. So that's how he plays it. And we would probably dive into that as well with our group. So then we progress to the team play drills. So instead of the drill, I'm gonna go back here. Sorry guys, girls. So this is just an example of how we would start a drill and then have a rush attack or a forecheck drill. So we'd start it with a goal line play to a shot, and then we'd incorporate a forecheck and a rush attack. So, there's different ways to start this drill. We decided on that day, well, goal line's a theme, let's do that. It's a very small part of the drill. It's really not the focus of what the coaches were looking at, well, that's not true, but we wanted to make sure that the guys got it in their head. We need to generate plays from below the goal line. We need to generate plays from below the goal line. And hopefully that translates into your next game and how your team plays moving forward. So, and then here's just some post-practice drills. Again, something that I'm a big part of with my role as an assistant coach. So these are drills that you can do and you can make up. And I watch a lot of morning skates from other American League teams, and when I have the time, other NHL teams, and you get to steal drills and tweak them. And this is something that we did that was no pace involved, but just something to help the players scan and identify the ice. So this player skates to the puck. He has the option to turn down or turn up, and then the same thing. He's looking for his teammate. Has he gone to the high slot? Has he gone backdoor? He scans the ice, he turns, and he fires that pass. So it's a low zone play. And then you can progress to a high zone play on the other side of the diagram here. But and then how does that work and why does that matter? If we're working with a particular player, well, here's an example. Cut back, chance. So we want that player to quickly cut back, not stick handle, and have his head up. His head turns as he turns, and he makes that quick play to the net. So Obviously, you're not going to have all these tools in place to use when you're coaching your own team. The reason why I put those clips in place is I wanted to emphasize that yes, they're simple drills and they're um, very simple, to be honest, but they're applicable and they happen even at the highest level in the NHL. And we are constantly trying to work with our players to get them to be a little bit better. And part of that is making sure they know why. And if you don't tell them why, I think sometimes you lose certain players. But with the analytics that we have and the scoring chances that we have, had the opportunity to have individual meetings with players and get them to understand where it is their strengths are, where it is their weaknesses are. And then certainly as a team, we've had the opportunity to maybe have a little bit more data for them to realize, okay, this is why we're focusing on this today. Coach isn't saying we're doing D-zone today. You know, how many times have you had a coach, or maybe you've done that yourself, or saying, well, we're going to work on D-zone. The guys look around and says, you know, like, it's like saying, we're going to work hard today. You need to work harder. What does that mean? Players need more information than that. They want more information. And a lot of them now are willing to ask more questions. And I think it's great. And I think it's different. And it's certainly something that I had to get a little bit more accustomed to as I got older and worked a little bit more and more as a coach. But I'm comfortable with it now and I'm accepting of it. And you know, I'm really, really happy that, you know, I've had the opportunity to learn from people that you see on the screen. So from a very young age, I had Guy Lalonde with the Gloucester Rangers when I was a kid. I'm from Leitrim. He ended up being my assistant coach at the major junior level. So he went from non-hockey background to making a living coaching. So if any of you are still aspiring to join the pro coaching ranks, there's an example of a guy that did that. And then obviously there's names on there that you may or may not recognize, but they all had a big impact on me. Obviously, Claude Julien is now the Montreal Canadiens head coach. He had a huge impact on me. The names go on and on. Fred Parker, who's now a critical piece of the Calgary Flames organization. I got to learn under him for 3 years, and it was a really good opportunity. He's probably the best evaluator of talent that I've ever seen. So got to learn from him. And then obviously on the right side of the page are sort of the guys that I've worked with in the past few years. I've had the opportunity to work with some great people at the U Sport level. Richard Bowie, who moved to the Moose before me, a year before I did. So we've actually done both, which is very unique. And then now I'm working with 3 outstanding coaches that you see at the bottom there, Pascal, Eric, and Rick, who push me every day, and it's been outstanding. So I have 2 more slides. The next one is very important to me to acknowledge who's helped me along the way. And I think the best thing I ever did as a very young head coach, I was 31, coaching university sport. And I decided to try to find, I have to go back there. I decided to try to find 2 people that I knew held the same ethics that I did, but also I wanted to find 2 guys that were going to push me, were smarter than me, and you know, we're going to give our players the best chance to succeed. So for 7 years, I got the opportunity to work with these 2 guys. You could say I was a head coach, but I think we were all kind of co-coaches. And then the year I left for the Moose, Ryan ended up getting the University of Toronto job that summer, and Sean took over as the head coach at Carleton. And this year they were both named Coach of the Year, one in the East and one in the West. So I'm really proud of the fact that I had the opportunity to work with those guys. And you don't often get an opportunity to thank or acknowledge the people that help you. And these 2, along with Richard Bowie, were a big part of the reason why I am where I am today. And I just wanted to thank them, even though they're not on the call. But that concludes my presentation. I hope it was clean enough for you. It's not something I had ever talked about before, and it was a new journey that I took this year in terms of looking at that. And as I mentioned previously, this is not a Winnipeg Jets protocol or anything like that. This is just something that I took on, and on top of the duties I had with my job as an assistant coach with the Moose, and it really helped me understand our team a lot better, and I think it helped me plan practice maybe a little bit better than I had done in the past, or the input I had anyway, on planning practice. So yeah, I'll end that and I'll leave that to you, Brian. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I think I'm pretty much right at the hour, so I'd be very happy to answer or listen to any questions or input that you may have.
Well, thank you very much, Marty. Very interesting. The whole analytics, as every hockey coach knows, it's the buzzword and the buzz term today, but I particularly found it interesting to look at how you've taken the analytical side of the game and turned it into how you change practice, run practice, the things you work on, the things you teach based on the analytics that are coming out of the games that you play. We don't hear that very often. We always hear about analytics being a measure of a player's quality. It was really interesting for me to hear you talk about how it helped you as a coach to do things different around your players, with your players and the team. So it was an interesting slant on that for sure. We had one question. I'm sure others will start to flow in here. But we had one question come in during the presentation. Interested in knowing if you also track giveaways and takeaways that lead to scoring chances for and against.
Yes. So part of our tracking system would be takeaways and giveaways. So for example, if I was coaching Laval on that shorthanded goal that we scored, that Laval player would be responsible for that scoring chance against. So we certainly would keep that, and that's part of our classification in terms of how we keep track. So yeah, we certainly do that, and I think the important thing to note is that you don't want to use it as a weapon to use against your players. And I think sometimes, I've been in situations where I walked in the room after a game and there's a highlighted, Marty Johnston, 4 shots on net, 1 hit, and it's highlighted in front of the group. And I felt as a player, obviously not at the highest level, but I felt as a player, then players were just trying to hit their goals. So first period, let's get our hits out of the way, boys, so that we're not on the chopping block tomorrow morning for coach to have, the orange highlighter out. I think it's more about using it for your own information and giving the players very limited information back. It's more, you got to do your job. Don't worry about the player knowing how many mistakes he made. You do your job, so you're evaluating the players the right way.
Yeah. Completely unrelated, because we had a conversation earlier today. We had a great chance to talk before your presentation. And knowing you personally, if you could just speak a little bit to, and I guess this is the shameless plug for coach development, but you're a perfect example to get to speak to it, because regardless of the heights that you've reached, you've never abandoned the need to continue to develop and grow and learn as a coach yourself. I know, as head coach of the Ravens in 2016, you were with me in Calgary doing your HP2. You didn't need to be in Calgary doing your HP2, but you were. You told me today, in 2018, you were part of the Hockey Canada Skills Coach certification program. So you continue to grow and you continue to develop. If you could just speak to a little bit about that for the benefit of the coaches that are on the call tonight, because again, you are an example of, you're coaching in the AHL. There's no demands on you from that perspective to be this certified, trained, whatever. They've hired you for a reason. You continue to strive to get to those levels of certification and training and knowledge. So,
yeah, no, it's been really good, and I think that sometimes, not to knock the classes, but you get the opportunity to sit in with, and unfortunately not right now because we're all online, but you get to sit in and meet people, and it's between those sessions that you ended up talking about things. And I had the opportunity to go to Calgary 3 times last summer. I presented for them for the first time, but it's the people you meet, the topics bring up ideas, and then they end up kicking you out of the room because they need somebody else. Somebody else needs to use it, and you get in those brainstorming sessions. And it was like last year, like I mentioned with that goalie coach. Since then I've reached out to him and acknowledged that I was going to talk about him in this presentation. But had I not gone to Windsor, I wouldn't have learned that. And it's you gotta take the same mindset as your players. You expect them to get better regardless of the circumstance. We're in a pandemic right now, and I'm sure all of you are thinking, well, it's still the role of the athlete to try to get better. Regardless of what you have available to you, find a way. And I think as a coach, you got to maintain that mindset as well. As I got to get any piece of information possible, and I got to connect with as many people as possible to get better. And it's fun to me. Like this is the greatest gig in the world, coaching and watching players grow and being involved. So yeah, it's been outstanding, and I've now become part of Hockey Manitoba, and you think, okay, my first opportunity with Hockey Manitoba, it was an HP1 seminar. I had done a little bit of work for defensive team play, and I focused in on the New York Islanders playoff series. Well, the guest speaker they got at the last minute was Barry Trotz. So you can imagine my thought process when I realized that. But I got the opportunity to present in front of an NHL head coach. I got an opportunity to speak to him after the fact. I got to meet Andy Murray for the first time. So, if you're doing these things, like I looked at the presenters that you had already. I believe you had Jason Clark, you've had Dave Leger, like the list goes on and on and on. Like the opportunity to listen to those guys, like I want to learn from those people, and we can all take little things from each other and get better, and that's what it's all about.
Awesome. We had a question come in while we were chatting about age for analytics. And the coach asks, they're really good, they're great at older ages, but at what age do you believe is reasonable to start using analytics? Is there a too young?
I think to deliver the message to the player, yes. But if you want to understand how your team is playing and this, how you think your team is playing and how they are playing, they're two different things. If you think that you can see everything behind the bench and you know exactly how your team's played after you left the rink that night, you're lying to yourself. Now that I have the opportunity to use video, it's easier to say that, but get a parent, maybe if you have 2 goalies and they're, half decent people, get them to track the shots and where they're coming from, just as a starting point, and use it for your own information as a coach. And from there, I wouldn't want to, show stats like I showed you to young players, for sure I wouldn't. But what I want to know as a coach, and that's kind of the real message I was hoping to send tonight. As a coach, I think there's things that you can take from it and learn from it, and don't sit outside the dressing room and and wait to go on the ice and then explain the drills to the coach, to the team, or not tell your assistant coaches what they're doing. Like, no, don't do that. Be prepared. You're a volunteer, I get it, but try to be as prepared as you can and try to help those young players get better, because the younger they are, the more important your job is. And you see that in some of the European countries. They, devote so much to the skill development of their younger players, so that when they get older and they get to people like me, it's much easier to tweak the little things, but you're not trying to, kind of redesign the engine. The engine is built.
Okay. Question here from Coach Mark. Do you use any software to help you with your analytics or video that you find invaluable?
Yeah, we do. I think it's beyond there's a heavy investment that is involved in it, but we use Sports Logic, and then we have some other things that we do as well. But the company that we use for our analytics is Sports Logic.
Okay. So you guys are big Huddle users as well, I believe, aren't you?
Yeah, and the
Huddle?
the software that we use is called Sports Code, which is a
So we cover our area and the other side of the league.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me mute that. Had a question here from Ed. At what point in your coaching journey did you feel comfortable with your role and program, and what was it that made you feel that way? We're getting deep now.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know that when I first became a head coach at 31, as I mentioned in my slide, I had Sean Van Allen, and when I look back now, he was a former NHL player, and he was good enough to kind of allow me to make the mistakes I made and not step on my toes. But I started off as a blood and guts coach. It was effort, it was intensity, and a little bit more effort. And as I got more comfortable in coaching, I kind of, I don't know if I softened. I don't know. Some of my former players would fall over if I said that, but I think I got more comfortable by just the experience and the reps. It's just like players. You need as many reps as you can get. And if you're a head coach at the Pee-wee level, well, you're getting reps as a head coach. You're getting to run a bench. If you're, an assistant coach running the D, I did that for my first 3 years at Carleton. Now, my idea of a defenseman up until then was get me the puck, and then it was a great opportunity for me to learn the vantage point of defensemen. And so, it's unfortunately, it's like everything. I think it's experience, and I don't really have a good answer. It's like saying, how do you know when you're ready to be a parent? Well, I don't know.
I don't see any others coming in, so that might be the extent of them. Marty, thank you so much for taking time out of your, I would normally say out of your busy schedule, but it's probably not as busy these days as it normally would be. Jeff, was there anything you need to add from a logistics perspective?
Yeah, Marty, I appreciate that. I was lucky enough to be in Calgary last year for your presentation, so this was a good follow-up to that. And just as a side note, Richard, your shout out to Richard Buey. He's been on, I think 9 or 10 of our calls so far this year, and he's on it tonight as well. So he's
probably on it to make sure I didn't have any major issues. But yeah, no, that's good. If there's sorry to interrupt, but he's another example. So I have two things. He's another example for people. So he was working for the federal government while working at Carleton as our assistant coach / video coach. Then he got involved with HEO, and he got involved with Hockey Canada on the women's side, doing some video coaching. And now is the video coach for the Moose, and our head coach Pascal Vincent. If you talk about Richard Bowie, I mean, I don't know if there's anyone he thinks more highly of than him. So he's done it through the video coaching way, and he's on obviously a lot more than that to our group, but he's a great example. So and then lastly, I wasn't sure how much time we had, and I know everybody's involved in what we're going through in different ways, but I want to wish everyone a very safe and hopefully healthy future. Here in Manitoba, we're very fortunate that actually the rink I'm in right now, there's kids playing spring hockey, so we're a little bit ahead of where I think you guys are in Ontario and Ottawa. But all the best to everyone. Listen to the experts, and make sure all your kids focus in on science classes. Those people are so important.
Well, thanks again, Marty. And thank you again to all the coaches that sat in tonight. We hope like always, we hope that you got at least one good takeaway to throw into your toolbox for future use. Next week, we'll be joined by Corey McNabb. Corey is, I think I've got the title right, the Director for Development at Hockey Canada. So all the instructional stream clinics, the coaching clinics, all of that stuff falls under Corey's mandate at Hockey Canada. And those are things that you'd all be familiar with. So, and then the week after Corey, we have Wes Wolf from the Erie Otters joining us. So continuing to come up with a good lineup, and hope to see you all back. And to reiterate on Marty's wish, everybody stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you all next Wednesday at 7 o'clock. Take care, everybody.
Awesome.